when you're a logical man, logical things happen to you. When you're an illogical man, illogical things happen to you. But if you're a logical man who does illogical things, that makes those illogical things now logical. A logical thing to do is listen to This Podcast is for Nerds. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, a very logical choice of your listening pleasures. Calvin, how are you today? That sounds about right, yep. You know what, society aside, I've been thinking about this kind of selfishly. I'm ready to go to Silvio's Organic Pizzeria. Go to your house. They have, and I've actually been going because I thought they were closed and they're not. So I've been doing curbside pickup. What I've been discovering is that I have a strong need to actually do this in the same room with you. Yeah. I'm just going to start hashtagging everything COVID remote as well. That's true. I actually... this is going to sound super silly, and it's going to sound like I don't care as much about the quality, and this is not true. I'm just having so much fun that I'm just glad to finally be doing this, honestly. In episode 1 or 2, we talked about our inception in starting this podcast. Or maybe we also talked about it during the never before aired mystery podcast, Podcast 0, which will never come to the light of day because that we should call it, though, that's the okay, gotcha. We should just keep referring to it then. Oh man, that's good stuff. So we hope you guys are good. We're still amidst the COVID shutdown. Michigan has had a break in the curve, and we are trending downwards per cases tested and people coming back. We're trending downward. Number of tests, people who have been tested is increasing, and the number of positive tests is decreasing. So that's a great thing. They did. I think it's extended until the mid-May, I believe. That's not true. We talk quite often about this. Fair. I'm doing what I can do. That's just my mentality with most things, pandemic or otherwise. I would say that the first week it was a bit of a shock just because there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of not knowing what to do, because it's not like fighting a fire where you can see the fire and the smoke. It's literally I don't know what's happening and people are getting sick everywhere. It's just every horror movie you ever see. So it was time to like figure out the family plan, who's going where, what's going on with what. This is before all schools had adopted distance learning, so some schools were requiring students to show up, including my wife's school, which that was a fun little fiasco we had to deal with. But at this point, I think I've got a schedule nailed down again. I'm back into my training. I'm not like COVID dieting and eating everything in my fridge because I have training goals. So I have been eating more. I have been eating out more. I would say a combination of wanting to support local business, but at the same time, driving just to not be in the house for 4 days in a row. And, when we leave the house, we stay in our car and like wear a mask and gloves if we have to. But generally, it's just drives out to the country. The family has a farm up north. We'll go up there and just be open and in the air. And you're definitely has the ability to social distance on 20 acres. So. Yeah, it's just one of those things, just being more careful. I mean, being more careful financially, honestly, obviously, and just doing what needs to get done. This is one of those situations where if I have some sort of progress on something per day, I'm okay. Now that school's going to be over and the semester's ending, I'll have to find more ways to occupy time to where I feel like I'm being productive. But it's a weird but humbling thing when you aren't the one who's essential anymore to go do something to help a situation. And that's just very opposite from my just general work experiences, to be the one that's like stay. Yeah, so that's been honestly the hardest part mentally, was just getting to that point where the only action I can take is to not take action and stay at home. And I was like, oh, well. And then I got super active on Instagram, reaching out to everybody and, just trying to talk more about mindset and mindfulness. And, it's hard. The people who've lost their jobs and are literally worried about everything. How do you tell them, oh, like I never go with, it's gonna be okay, everybody. Oh, you guys just be in a good mood, just be happy and smile. I don't start with that. I don't actually ever really say that. That's like unrealistic and also kind of unfair, because that's like putting a blanket statement on people's like livelihoods, and that's like super not cool. Yeah. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, you slick devil, you. It was my first time watching it. Oh wow, okay. I think it was June or July, because it came out. Yeah, because it left the Cannes Film Festival in 2019. So I would say it came to Michigan June or July. It's funny. You recommended Burning last time, and that kind of got me on the whole South Korean movie kick. And I was like, oh, I heard about Parasite. It sounds like it's going to be awesome. Part of me anticipated the same pacing from Burning in this movie, and that is not the case. If I could compare the two movies, I would say Burning reminds me of the tide coming in. If you're sitting on the beach, just normally, it's just kind of rising, and okay, cool, it's high tide. The water's gonna get me if I sit here. This is like you are in the middle of a storm on the beach, and the storm hasn't hit you just yet, but the waves will oscillate between fast-paced and gutty to more or less tranquil, and kind of lure you into a sense of, oh, the waters are fine now. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I can do the synopsis actually. So the movie starts off with a central family, and it opens up with, they're not in the best scenario. Like, they're trying to figure out how to get Wi-Fi in their house because their phone's been cut off. Just basically economically poor, bottom barrel. There's like nothing below them as far as like money, income, whatever. And brief synopsis. Long story short, by way of a friend, the son becomes a tutor for a very rich family. And through that, he finds ways to get jobs for his mother, his sister, and his father with this really rich family. But the way they do it is they don't tell the rich family that they're actually related. And they keep going through this whole way of, we're recommending this to this, to this to this. And basically are getting employed by this very rich family. Now, it's definitely a con job because the young man who became the tutor, they forged his documents saying that he was in school, which didn't even really end up mattering in the long run. But the basic premise is, okay, we'll do that. So basically, the underprivileged family, or the family on the lower end of the economic totem pole, works with a super rich family, and through that, you start to see the differences in their livelihood and mentality. What I like is that the movie opens up with neither side necessarily being good or bad, and they don't really open up with like in Burning, you knew that the antagonist had a lot more money from the get-go, but he seemed like a decent guy for a while. Here, they start off with both sides are just kind of like, obviously we have a bigger house, we do this, we do that, but they don't really show like the darker side of their mentality on either side until later on in the movie. I don't think I did a good job summing this up, but this movie's still very fresh in my mind, and we are on time, so... Okay. Ooh, okay. If you liked Burning, if you liked Burning for the pacing, I would say no. If you liked Burning for the storytelling, I would say yes. For our audience, I would definitely recommend this film. It has a lot of different elements that I love. I love suspense movies. I love kind of capers, so to speak, like Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12. There's definitely some high points where you see togetherness and family, and you kind of you don't really know what side to root for. And even right now, I don't know who to root for, and I don't really think any side was in the beginning wrong. So oof. I'll say 4.9 out of 5. And if you haven't watched the movie and you're not able to go watch it right now, but you still want to hear our lovely voices, go back to a previous podcast that you haven't heard before, or go to a previous podcast you have heard before just to hear us a little longer. You know you want to. I want you to. Come on. Come join me. Come join us. Chocolate, vanilla, we got you. Don't matter. Let's do it. So you've seen the movie 4 times now. Okay. And that's why I couldn't give it a 5 out of 5. Only because on the first go, I can't do that to a movie. I think it's not fair. I'll watch it another time. Just I'm gonna give it some time between, just so I have a fresh palette. Like I don't know what's happening, but I get to go back and just kind of have fresh eyes on it instead of like hyper focusing on things I just saw like in the previous week. Right. Right. Yeah, I guess I lumped up their forgery as a whole, like even when they made those fake companies to like get them hired, and less so him getting caught for not having or going to the college is what I meant. Because when the mom interviews him, she goes, "I don't care about your paperwork or your documents." That's kind of where I was going with the whole like not really readdressed. It does actually. The dad is one of those people who you could tell he's kind of like the morale and kind of he's if there was a good cop bad cop in his relationship, he's good cop, his wife is bad cop, and his kids fall somewhere in between. Especially because the scene where he's eating the bread and he goes, "Ah, damn stink bugs," and they get the pizza job and they're folding boxes and they come to fumigate the neighborhood. He says, leave the windows open so we can kill the stink bugs in the apartment as well. And mind you, this is a basement level apartment in a very poor neighborhood, and so the fumigation gas comes in to kill the bugs, and everyone else is like gagging and coughing like, "Oh man, this sucks, I can't do this," and he's just sitting there through the smoke watching this lady fold Domino's pizza boxes real fast to like get his boxes done. I think in the beginning he's the one you always kind of see with the chipper attitude, and later on when he explains his approach to planning, it kind of starts to make sense why he is the way that he is. But I think he's more of an optimist, and his wife is definitely more of a pessimist when it comes to just life in general. And his son and his daughter pick up on both sides and just kind of learn to actually negotiate very well, I would say, to get by on how they need to. No. And you could all they allude to that later on as well when it talks about how the father had several businesses that he talks about several jobs he took up to make ends meet after several different businesses he had or attempted to have throughout the family's timeline had failed and gone under. He said if that's a phrase he has, that's his phrase in the movie. That I love that. Yeah, and she's like to the equivalent of what I can understand. She's in high school. Something like that, yeah. I would put them probably in their mid 20s only because it mentioned how Kiwoo did his military service, and I'm not sure what the minimum military service time is for South Korea, but it made me kind of put him around the mid 20s age range. Yep. Yeah, that's it. That. Yeah. And that she's just trying to regurgitate what's on the paper without actually. She's not taking. She's the word he used was vigor. She's not getting after the questions as if she's gonna dominate them. She's just kind of scrambling around them, and it's not gonna help her stay focused when the amount of questions she has to answer per the entrance exams can be enough to throw her off to like not even finish the test. No, this is your to the sun now. Da song. It's one of those things that I think too, and not even to fault her, but it's something that we were introduced about her character very early on when Kiwoo's friend comes over and he says, you won't have to worry about the mom picking you up on the fact that you didn't go to school. She's very simple. And they allude to her behavior from different characters' perspectives throughout the movie, but they don't necessarily get into that is her character because she's rich. It's more so that she probably would be this way regardless. She just happens to be in a rich environment. And I think that changes later on throughout the movie when they kind of make it so that she's still not a circumstance, she's still not a victim of her circumstances, so to speak. But at the same time, she's not really pushed to do more because her husband just will pay for everything, and he really is the one just kind of pulling the strings in the whole deal. I think he likes her simple because of that very tense sexual encounter later on. At least, you know what? At least this wasn't awkward in the sense that the two people having sex were awkward. She knew what she wanted. He knew what he wanted. They were getting after it. It was more awkward because of the couch. Or no, what was underneath the table, actually. Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I would not go so far as to say she's stupid. I just think she's gullible for sure, but kind of like, yeah, not even childlike. It's just her character is it's actually more. Her character is more. I wouldn't say profound. More. What's the word, Calvin? You know what I'm trying to say. There's more depth to her than meets the eye. It's funny because for all the English tutoring talk, she's the only one in the movie who actually uses English consistently. I am deadly serious. Yeah, he goes on about he's like, it's so abstract. Is it a chimpanzee? And she's like, that's him. It's self-portrait. And he goes, and you can tell when the con starts to come in. He's like, oh, that's what I meant. It's sometimes from an artist's perspective, it's so hard to get the words out properly. Like he's milking it. Yeah, they didn't really get caught until they ran across someone else who was pulling a con of their own. Yeah, they came up with a rhyme to remember, which means they're not new to this concept. by which point he also, so his friend originally who had the his friend also recommended him because he knew that he wouldn't have to worry about him making a move on this high school kid, to which that does not hold. That scene had me dying because he was like, excuse me. What do you say? He couldn't be like, oh yeah, for sure, that's my sister. I wouldn't do that. What I like about this movie was that it's very smooth. They don't spend a lot of time with establishing the backstory of, oh, well, they learned how to, like, if you look at the Italian Job, like the remake, they spent time going to the backstory and how, how they got good at conning and blah, blah, blah. Here, it's not even necessarily they're con people. It's just like, they made jokes like, haha, they could be a con man. But it was just like, this is the hustle. And we're going to take our chance. This is the plan. This is the hustle. And all throughout, you have this plan going, and then there's even one point where things go awry, and Kiwoo freaks out. He's like, Dad, this wasn't in the plan. What do we do? And this whole time, they're talking about a plan that they had initiated because towards the end of the scene, like I said, they mentioned that the daughter is very pretty. She gets a ride home because they don't want to send a girl home on her own, but they also couldn't send her all the way back to her house because they didn't know where she lived and they'd figure out the family all lived together. She takes her panties off in the back of the car after the driver kind of hits on her, kind of not. Right. And the plan was, too, is that she took off her panties and threw them on the floor. So that way when the boss rolled the car next time, he'd find them. And then it turned to a whole thing where there's a theme in this movie where, excuse me, the rich family, the rich family, when they let go of their house staff, they have a way of doing it that seems very consistent. So the husband will put that on the wife to do, and apparently she's had to do it a lot because she made a mention of having to do that a lot. And basically, when they fire the driver, they talk to the sister afterwards, and they go, "Hey, did anything happen yesterday with the driver?" And she goes, "No, why? He dropped me off at the station, and I went home." Oh, okay, because we had to let him go. There was something that happened, and they won't say what happened because they're too embarrassed or ashamed to say that it happened, so they will never mention it. And then from there, the daughter goes, my family, when they were in Korea, we had a driver we've known for years, blah, blah, blah. But, my family's no longer in Korea. Maybe the driver's still available. And then that's how they get the interview with the dad. Mercedes. Right, because the preview, it really is. And it's funny too because that's definitely shows a difference because they won't just let you walk into a Mercedes dealership here and do that. And it was interesting too. So this movie had two. Would you say it had three distinct tone shifts or just two? I think if I had to split it into two, the first part of the movie was basically establishing the whole setup of the con and how they kind of got into it, and it really didn't dive too deeply into the separation of the classes, despite the fact that, oh, sorry, I'm getting all confused. My words are getting all confused. The first part of the movie seemed more like the con job, where it's like, okay, cool, this family's gonna figure out how to get in. Will they get caught? Cool, they're making money. You see they're eating better at their own house. They're happier. They're this, that, and the third. But they don't necessarily get into the class discrimination aspect of it until, and we don't really see how long this con goes on, but they don't really get into it until later on. I think around the camping trip is when they bring that up, because that's when they're underneath and they're eavesdropping, and yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yep. Your emotions are up here. I need them to be down here. Yeah. Wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know we're at the 40-minute mark, and we're not going to make an hour. It's going to go longer. But what did you never had hot sauce on pizza? Hmm. Calvin, what the hell, dude? Like, all right, okay. So, post COVID plans. We're going to Silvio's. We're getting a pizza, and we're putting hot sauce on it. I vote for the mushroom truffle pizza. It's incredible. I just thinking. No, it wasn't disappointing. It was kind of shocking, actually. I was like, "Wait, try what?" For a second, I thought you might find the actual hot sauce from the movie. I was like, "Oh, we could probably go to the Galleria and see if we can find that." Sorry, please continue, because we will. Pizza boys. We do need to do that more. Yeah. Yeah. The part that gets me about that too is that, you know, he gets a text from the sister gets a text from the brother saying Dad's 3 minutes out, and that's when she times when to get the maid to start coughing. And then it cuts away to the scene of her going up the stairs, and then back to them rehearsing. And they go, by the way, if you have time, this would be the great icing on the cake. And he flicks up the hot sauce. And that's when the dad goes to the trash can, pours it on the on the napkin, and holds it up. And that whole scene was gold. And then it cuts to like the lady getting fired, and then all of a sudden, here comes the mom, prim and proper, carrying peaches up the, carrying a peach on the fruit tray. Oh, I'm sorry. We cut over something very important. Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's an interesting part too. You're right. That's the first scene where he kind of like f's up because a part of his driver's test was when the boss. So the father of the family, he's the head of some tech something. Because that's the one thing too. He's very big on people staying in their lane and staying in line. As long as they do that, he has no problem with it. So he seems like this kind of like, oh, he's a rich guy, but he seems like really balanced and down to earth. But the more you get to learn about him, the more you see his ego really just runs the show. During the father's driver's test, he goes, "Don't worry, this isn't a test or anything. I'm just." This isn't a test. I'm just, looking to see how you drive. But the whole time he's holding a cup of tea basically at full. And, I'm assuming that if the father were to have, the car shifted up to spill the tea, he wouldn't have got the job. So this scene where he wasn't even watching the road because he was pushing so hard for his wife to get hired, but also questioning if his boss likes his wife, they almost get hit by like a truck. So I would also like to interject something too. This is the first scene where you start to see how in the earlier parts of the movie, you see how the family relied on the people who they employed, but also you start to see now how they kind of abuse the people they employed. And basically, the premise was, well, you get paid enough so we can do what we want with you, because they had the mom go down and like pack up all of the impromptu camping gear and equipment, and they're just hassling her the whole time, and that was mostly the wife doing that. So that was an interesting part that I noticed as well, the kind of tonal shift when it's like, okay, cool, now we're making this money, things are going to be great, but in reality they're really not. I mean, let me change how I say that. Making money is better, but how they're being treated has gotten significantly worse. I honestly didn't recognize her. It took me a minute because I was like, who is this? Like, because the minute last time you see her, she's still prim and proper. She's in a suit jacket. She has her luggage. She's walking away. But when she returns, that is not. She's just not. It's on a rainy night. It's a heavy downpour, like a monsoon. Yeah, it's complete opposite of what I would expect. Well, see, that was the part I was confused on still too, because I didn't catch that that was her. I just caught, because they mentioned earlier on too that there was a previous owner of the house who kind of left in a hurry, and I was thinking that maybe the person who had come back was the person who was a part of the family that lived there before the current family. So when they said, "Oh, they rushed me out so fast I couldn't grab all my stuff," I was thinking of someone coming to like reminisce over the house, so I missed that entirely until they showed the downstairs scene, and that's when I was like, "Whoa, okay, that's the housekeeper, the former housekeeper. What the hell is going on?" Right. It's an interesting concept too, because in the ocean movies, you see people who help them get kind of, oh, here's 100 grand for helping us out. But people who get screwed because they robbed a casino and now they're out of a job, they don't show that side of it. This literally shows it abruptly. Oh, I lost it. I was like, this is hilarious. I don't know what's happening right now, but it's great. Oh yeah, it definitely is. Honestly, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, what? Because this whole time I'm watching the movie, I go, okay, cool, something crazy is gonna happen just from like how it's set up. Because the trailers don't betray any of this. They don't tell you, oh, there's gonna be a crazy twist. They don't tell you any of it. So when I saw that part, I was like, wait a minute, what? What? This whole movie was just a whole nother step of like, wait, what's happening now? It was great. I was just like, I don't. Like, I literally was just like, I don't know what's going to happen right now. I don't know what this, I don't even know what this is. Is this a real thing that happened? Apparently, for people who have the money, this is a real thing. It's the equivalent of bomb shelters because when you live, pretty much next door to North Korea, you kind of want a bomb shelter. And that's what this was. It was built into the house by the original owner who was an architect, but apparently he was embarrassed to tell anybody that he had it there. So only the housekeeper knew because she actually worked for him before he left, and then she was recommended to the new occupants of the house, so she knew about the entire house and its layout. And they mentioned that earlier too, how she's a sheep. She acts like a sheep, but in reality she's a wolf, and she's the one who runs the household. And it kind of gets you hear that comment, you go, okay, I mean, she's strict with the kids, she knows everything, but in reality, it literally goes deeper than just the surface level. Haha, see what I did there? It literally goes deeper than the surface level of her participation with the family. And we find out, too, that she is also, not just a great employee, because you feel like, oh, she got fired, she's a great employee. She herself was also a parasite, because she was utilizing this basement area, this subdermal bomb shelter, to hide her husband away from money from loan sharks. And so she would steal food from the family to keep her husband alive. And he'd been down there for like, oh, okay. That's right, she did. But she was keeping them down there, and I guess he used to work for the family as well. Is that? And it's funny because he made a similar reference to the father of the movie too, when he goes, "Yeah, my Taiwanese cake shop, Castella shop, failed," and that was similar to the story that the main father protagonist had told his children. Um, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh that what? Oh, yep. Oh, I'm sorry. I went to red levels for that because I didn't anticipate that coming out of your mouth. I'd say three. I'm curious. I'm curious to know what your two are, and then maybe your second one is my maybe because there's a big one where he super fucks up where he could have avoided some stuff. No, it's the son. The son goes, "Dad, you're on my leg." Yeah, because she also said too, she was, I thought it was weird that the driver was let go. And, for her too, she didn't understand why she was let go. But now that she knows that everyone who replaced their jobs are co-conspirators, she's like pissed. Yeah, yeah, there's so much. There's so much going on with that right now. I can't leave my house regardless, so the news wouldn't change. Yeah, yeah. It's again adding on to the whole. You're at our beck and call. You're, yeah. Like aside from the whole plot thickening of like being captured and figuring out that you can be exposed, just assume that she was doing her job properly. She gets called in the middle of the night. Hey, can you boil some noodles right now? They'll be done by the time we get home. No hello, no hey. It's just like, by the way, we're 8 minutes away, so get to boiling. Yeah, they tied the husband up, put him back downstairs, and then with the housekeeper, since they know she's allergic to peaches, in order to win the fight against her, their daughter runs to the fridge, grabs all the peaches that are in the fridge, and pours them on her face, basically, which is completely ruthless, by the way. Like, yeah, especially knowing how Korean films are done, they're very like it's realistic. Like there's not this over the top. Oh, the Rock got hit in the back of the head with a 2x4, and he just shook it off and punched some dude in the face and got in his like '79 Camaro and drove off. No, that doesn't happen. I mean, at least not in this type of movie. I'm sure it happens for sure, but like, Yeah. One thing I thought was interesting too is that they showed the dad's medal in the beginning of the movie. You know, he has nothing else. You know, life is a series of whatever for him, ups and downs. But he holds onto this medal, and the one thing he does save from the house being flooded was his medal. Like he reaches for it and pulls it off the wall and takes it with him. And you see this desperate struggle between the father, son, and the daughter. Because again, earlier on he left the windows open to get free fumigation, but now that windows being open made the house also get flooded as well. When the son goes to try and close the window, he can't because he's getting electrocuted from the water and the sewage. So, and that's when we get to the scene after them fighting to. So these scenes are juxtaposed with each other, where it shows. It shows the Park family and relative whatever. They don't notice anything different. They're just like, hey, it rained. We had to come home. The Ki Woo's family, I guess I can say, I don't remember what their last names are, if they even mentioned their last names, actually, their real last names. But Ki Woo's family has to go struggle to try and save what possessions they can from the flood. And the former housekeeper and her husband are in various states of disrepair from being thrown into whatever kind of, tuberculosis type, allergic reaction that she had, and kicked in the head and thrown down the stairs, in addition to the husband being tied up. And, that one hit me a little bit too, because he's sitting there tied up and bound and gagged, trying to save his wife, who's trying to help get him free, but she's so dizzy from the concussion that he basically has to sit there tied up and watch her die, because not only can she not breathe anymore, but she is also concussed. And she even says that she tries to get the tape off of him with her teeth, and he can't, and she can't. And she's like, hey, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I don't feel my head really dizzy. And mind you, she's tied up as well, so she's walking, but her arms are bound. And she goes to the bathroom that's in the area where he's being held, and she falls on her back. She goes, damn, I'm concussed. I don't feel very good. I can't see you anymore. And basically, it's her. She's dying. And he's sitting there screaming at the top of his lung. Well, he's also gagged, so he can't scream. But he keeps saying, she keeps repeating the name of the woman who replaced her from the family. And it puts him into a death spiral. And it's that scene of helplessness, that's the one I think, out of all of them, probably kicked me the most out of I'm watching a movie to watch it versus I feel this, and that sucked. Yeah, I mean, at this point in the movie too, because I didn't know what was happening next. So this whole thing wraps up where you see that happen with the former housekeeper and her husband. The Park family is unaffected by everything, and Ki Woo's family is sleeping in a gymnasium with other people who were displaced. And at this point, Ki Woo's like, Dad, I'm sorry I effed everything up. And his dad's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I messed everything up. I started all of this. I'm the reason why all this is happening. What do we do? What's the plan for this? We didn't plan for this. What do we do? And the dad basically reveals that his plan in life is to not have a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, you can't be disappointed by when things go wrong. And that was interesting compared to Ki Woo deciding to take matters into his own hands to fix a problem, where his dad was really just kind of going with the flow. And that plays out in very interesting ways in the next section of the movie, that Calvin will review. Well, let's say who, her mother or the Park family mother. Like let's. There you go. Right. And mind you, the daughter really only wanted Kiwoo, who's nicknamed Kevin by the Park family. By the way, she just went up and changed his name for no reason. By the way, that was, I forgot about that. The daughter really just wanted to keep making out with him, and that's why she invited him. It wasn't to actually join the party. She just kind of wanted him to stay in her room and they can continue to make out. That was her motivation. Oh man, okay. Yeah. Oh, we didn't mention this part. Yeah, okay. I'll jump back real quick and talk about it. So, during the cleanup of trying to hide the fact that that Kiwoo's family had been partying at the Park family's house, they couldn't all get out in time. So they hid underneath I guess you call it the living room table, while the Park father and Park wife laid on the couch and they were just talking about their son and life. The people they hired came up and they mentioned how, the father, again, he says this whole thing where he likes people who don't cross the line, they stay in their lane. And then he kind of chuckles to himself and he goes, the only thing that doesn't stay in the lane with the driver is that way he smells. And it's this weird smell. It's like the smell of people who ride the subway. And he goes, that smell crosses the line, and sometimes my mouth is open and I just drift to the back seat and I can't even stand it. But other than that, he's a good guy. Earlier on, the son, who was the painter, smells all three people as they walk into a room, and the family just laughs at it, like, oh, that's rude, don't do that. And then the son goes, they smell the same, when he smells the father and the housekeeper, the driver and the housekeeper. And he goes, okay, that's weird, don't do that. And then he goes, well, Miss Jessica smells the same way too, who's the daughter. And then the family has a powwow back at the house while they're planning. They're like, well, what does this mean? Do we have to change our like laundry? Do we have to change like the soap? Wow, I have words. I know English. The soap. It's a new brand. Do we have to change the soap we shower with? And the daughter was the one who points out, goes, no, it's not the smell of our clothes or anything. It's the smell of people who live on lower, basically, because they live in the basement floor It's muggy and damp. So people who live in sub basement apartments, and that people who only live there are people who live in poverty. So what they're smelling and making fun of is the fact they smell like they're in poverty because they ride the subway, they live in probably not such a great area. So the scene Calvin's alluding to is when the wife reacts to the smell of the husband. And this is the only time in the movie where, when these comments are made, I feel like the husband's morale starts taking hits because you don't see him smiling as much. You don't see him, because you have this appeal where it looks like the Park family appreciates the people they've hired, but you start to see the ugliness of where it's like they're really making fun of them, and they're not, they're happy with the job they do, but they're nitpicky on things like, oh, you smell like you don't have money because you ride the subway or because you live in a basement. So the scene Calvin alludes to is when the wife is going on about this party, and it's like, oh, we want all these people here, you guys come to the party. Mind you, Mr. Park is in agony because he just lost everything in his apartment. But there's the difference in class. She's like, oh, well, blah, blah, we have all these people here, blah, blah, blah. And as she's talking, she pauses, and Mr. Park looks at her, haha, Ki-woo's dad looks at her through the rearview mirror and sees her hold her nose and roll the window down because the smell of him is getting to her. And that becomes, I think, another tonal shift in the movie that is subtle but starts to hit harder. And that would be my third tone shift, because it's pretty sequential with the second part, but it's a whole nother aspect of it. The first part is like physical money. Hey, we don't have the money. And now it's like, well, where you live is imparting how poor you are. Yeah. Well, because he takes the rock. He brought the rock with him, and he goes, hey, I need to... he takes a break from making out with a teenager to go basically handle the living survivors of the basement area there. My intent, or my thought was he was going to go down there and basically kill them both to make sure they could maintain their lifestyle, because no one else knows that they're down there. The family didn't care to even look, so we can make this how to go under the rug and just not be a thing. Especially because the husband, or the Ki-woo's dad the previous night, goes, no one else knows what happens there except for us. So I'll come up with a plan. You guys just forget about it. And Ki-woo was like, I can't have that. My everything around me is falling apart. I'll take it into my own hands. So this would be fuck up number 3, where he decides to go down. Yeah, he decides to go downstairs and kill these people off with the rock that he got in the beginning. And mind you, the scholar rock is supposed to bring prosperity to those who own it. So that became the whole start of just everything. Hang on. I'm sorry, I gotta stop you. There's something that happens. See, the maid's husband by now got himself free and is furious. So in Ki-woo's mind, he's still tied up because that's how they left him. But he got free and is furious. His wife died. He was stuck down there. So Ki-woo comes down to kill him by smashing his head on a rock. They get into a scuffle, and the housewife's husband put like a looked like a rope tied to a bar around the dude's neck, around Ki-woo's neck, and tied him in place, and was gonna hit him with a rock. Yeah, but Ki-woo got free and started running up the stairs. But fuck up number 4 coming in, he runs up the stairs and is so panicked he doesn't remove the pipe tied to a rope around his neck. So when he tries to escape from the underground, he gets caught and literally chokes himself, and he gets again like hits the ground. Which, the madman who they tried to kill earlier comes up with the rock and bashes him in the head with it. Which was just that. I did too, especially when you see like the blood coming from his head, and he tried to hit him the second time and it missed, or whatever. Like, mm-hmm. Yeah, and just as far as like we talked about earlier when it was grounded. I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off. This is something when you mentioned earlier how grounded the movie is. Coming from an American viewpoint on action movies, you see dudes get shot and chopped up, and you hear something quippy every time. It's no big deal. This felt like a murder. Like, this was not like that. This was not even like slasher films. This was like, I just watched some dude get bashed in the head. And the thing is, too, they don't even show that part. That was why I still felt it. That's true. We won't spoil Burning. Yeah, go listen again. Yeah, the daughter comes up with the cake, and because the mom says you should carry it because I feel like if you carry it, it'll be more metaphorical because this is his recovery cake from, being better at art therapy. Which is funny because there's a scene that cuts to the daughter teaching the son to draw in a certain way to keep getting her employed, and because the daughter made up this whole thing about art therapy when she really wasn't doing it, but all she really did was to increase the price of what she was doing. It's a whole thing. Go watch the movie. It's great. We can't recap the whole thing. This is already going to be a longer media club, but I think it's proportionate because the movie is 2.5 hours long. So, yeah. He stabs Kiwoo's sister. Let's say that because the daughter sounds like not the teenager he was making out with, his actual sister. So the art teacher. Yeah, because she's holding him in his arms. The mother grabs him, but I think like that's when like the housewife tries to tackle him at the same time. I'm not really sure because like that whole scene, like I was just kind of engrossed in like everything that happened prior. Like even after Kiwoo got knocked out, it just shows this dude walking up to like going to the kitchen, grabbing a knife, and you're like, it's about to pop off. It's about to pop off. Like it's going. Yeah. And mind you, he's holding his daughter who's bleeding out in front of him and not even caring that someone else got stabbed. He's saying, give me the keys. We have to go. And he's like, the father's in shock. He just watched his daughter get stabbed and he's trying to keep her from dying. And then the mother tackles the guy who stabbed her daughter and they're wrestling. And he's trying to kill her because he blames her for killing his wife, which she technically did do. So that is happening, and the dad's just sitting there going like trying to hold his because she stabs her around the clavicle, which is close to the armpit. So you bleed out and die, and that's a major artery there. Like you're out. So this whole scene is shot with like it really emphasizes the park's lack of care for anyone not themselves, and there's literally people dying on their lawn. And so he throws him the keys, and the guy who stabbed his daughter falls on them after the wife ends up stabbing him in the side with like a meat skewer or something, and so the keys are underneath him. when Mr. Park goes to roll the assailant over and grab the keys, I guess the smell of the keys on the driver were like messing with him. And he holds his nose again, similar to the way his wife did earlier. And that's where you zoom in on the dad's face, and it's just like he'd had it. That was it. Like he just snapped. That's actually what I texted Calvin. Like, exactly. Because from the people's perspective, they only see what happened at the barbecue. They don't see what happened in the underground. They were still unaware of it entirely. It looked like the kind of thing you get where you don't have the money to actually afford to bury someone. So you get like a picture in an urn on a shelf of like hundreds in an underground room. Like there was someone who walked in with a floor sweeper after, just to clean up after everything. It, you know, I'm gonna say this too, so we are getting long here. Nothing we've said will spoil this movie for you. We're lacking the depth and the impact that watching this movie can do just by pulling you into everything, and we highly recommend you watch it. Like, yeah, that was. Uh, yeah. Oh fuck! Like, it turns out that was just fuck that one. That one. That one got me because it lured me into a sense of like, oh, this is how the movie's gonna end. But it turns out that's just Kiwoo's like imagination of what he wants to have happen, and the next scene after it shows the dad coming out and them embracing him, it just cuts back to Kiwoo in his sub level like basement apartment, writing this letter to his dad. Which, mind you, he has no way of communicating to his dad, and his dad just keeps putting out the same letter every night, probably just to keep himself sane, without any way of knowing if Kiwoo actually survived or if he was able to even read or find it. So Kiwoo he wrote a letter back to his dad, but he couldn't even send it to him. Like, how was he supposed to sneak into the house and get another job with the German family? Like, oh, by the way, I'm going to go downstairs real quick. And that just won't work. And his dad still wanted for murder, so even if he could get in there and bust him out, he couldn't do it. And each person ends the letter with so long. And I was like, oh, fuck. What has Calvin gotten me into this time? Trying trying to make me feel some feelings? You failed. It was deserving, and if we decide that we want to pull it later on, we'll know what happened. This will be episode 0.1 of pulled episodes. Oh, interesting. No, but I recently, someone else brought this up to me actually recently, and it wasn't you. So that's interesting. Okay. Sounds good. No, because we know what we need to do. We haven't done this in a while. So Media Club, last time we tried to figure out if we're going to do a recommendation for a restaurant. I actually don't have a recommendation this time. Calvin, I'm pretty sure you don't. But we were going to talk about what we're drinking for beer tonight. Right now, I've been slow pouring a nice bottle of Kirin Ichiban, and I've been sipping on that while we've been having our discussion. And I got the big boy bottles too. Like, this is the you're definitely drinking sake. This is the 22 ounce. It's fantastic. I hope that sigh was audible. Okay, so actually I do want to know this. What flavor are you drinking right now? Just kidding! If you want to know the flavor of White Claw Calvin's drinking right now, you have to find out next time on the episode of This Podcast is for Nerds.